Squirrels! So hello, and welcome to another Legends of Runeterra video. My name is Chris, and today we'll be going through some more card reveals. Yeah, let's just dive straight into it. I don't think today is a champion day, so let's just dive straight in. Looks like we've got a landmark here. Oh, that's a cool effect. Here it is. It is the NOXKRAYA arena. I'm sure this looks like something that has an official name. Perhaps this is like probably a known place within the lore, I would guess, given this name. I'd guess NOXKRAYA. It could be something else if it is. I'm sorry. I guess I'll learn in time. But it is the landmark for Noxus, of course. It is 5 mana. And it reads, round end, your strongest ally and the weakest enemy strike each other. Strike each other. Oh, this is interesting. I wouldn't have initially pictured this as a Noxus card, to be honest. If you gave me that text, I obviously probably would have thought this is more of a DEMACIAN thing. It's a very sort of mid-rangey, sort of slower, grindy thing, which doesn't really scream Noxus to me either. But it's certainly interesting. To me, this seems a little slow. I think this might compare best to the Shadow Isles landmark, where it just seemed like a pretty cool effect, but maybe a bit too slow for what you want to be doing. I just had an interesting thought. There is some synergies within Noxus with this card, with a card that you may not have ever played, and that I think the wording on this card is Armored Tusk Raider is the opponents or enemies with 4 or less attack can't damage it. I think that's the wording on it. If so, that has a really good synergy with this, because of course, if that's your strongest ally, most of the time their weakest enemies are going to be, less than 5 attack. But outside of that very specific thing, you'd need the only region combo I could think of this working with is like a Freljord Noxus, just pure beef. You just play the biggest units. You play stuff like Avaros and Hearthguard. You buff up your units as much as you can to just make them really fat and strong. And then, you get better open attacks from this, but that still seems pretty slow to be doing on round 5. So I'm not quite sure that this has the payoff that's worth it ultimately, because obviously your opponent, once you play this, can just sort of play around having this and wait for a favorable trade, and then sort of work out what their favorable trades might be. Now that might make your open attacks better, because they might be less inclined to play units down, and it might make combat a bit weird, and that you can think about, oh, what do I block, because then this will strike this, and then I'll kill this, and like it'll make combat probably a bit more complex as well in terms of what you want to keep alive and how you want to block. But I don't think this is that good, to be honest. I think it's a bit slow and has too much of a downside that their weakest enemy could still kill your strongest ally a decent amount of the time, particularly if they're playing around it. Particularly if they don't have many units, so you've kind of wasted 5 mana doing something that's not great. So I don't think this will make too much of an impact, unfortunately. Scorched Earth, also a Noxus card, 3 mana fast speed, kill a damaged unit or destroy a landmark. Wow. So Targon also got a very good landmark card, and this seems like the other landmark card that's going to be used. That the Targon one seemed much better than the previous ones we'd seen that deal with landmarks, and Scorched Earth, obviously costing the same, is also fast speed, and also has the duality to it that the Targon one did. We all know that damaged units, Noxian Guillotine is a card that sees play. It does happen. Units often get damaged. It's a good surprise way of being able to, kill a unit. And damaging a unit often isn't that difficult. So this is definitely a card that could see some play, particularly if landmarks are good. If landmarks are good, then this will 100% be played in any sort of Noxian control deck. Yeah, it's just a solid card. That's basically all you got to say to it. It'll come down to this or Noxian Guillotine, I think. And it'll be somewhat meta, depending, if all the things are small, then maybe you'll just play Ravenous Flock instead. But, if the meta shifts to, a bunch of big units that you need to get rid of, then you could maybe put in Scorched Earth instead. Yeah, and I think this will basically be, if landmarks are good, you'll play this instead of Noxian Guillotine. And if landmarks aren't ever played, then you'll probably stick with Guillotine, I guess. That's kind of the way I see this card playing up. Okay, we are in DEMACIAN. Yes, DEMACIAN. Stony Suppressor. 2 mana, 1/3. All spells cost 1 more. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh, I love this. Oh, this is going to be an interesting card. Oh my god. Wow. Wow. This is a crazy card. Oh my god. I love this card. Is this too good? I don't know. All spells cost 1 more. So obviously, that's the thing though. You're in DEMACIAN, right? You're playing a unit heavy deck. All you're playing is units. And you're basically saying to your opponent, you don't get to play the cards that you really want to play, Have fun, Have fun. I don't even know. I can't even think of spells off the top of my head, but have fun, bastioning for 4. And, every spell costs 1 more. This is going to be such a target, but of course your spells cost 1 more as well. So if you want to keep it alive, you're going to have to pay more as well. So that's why I kind of love this design. This to me feels very Magic the Gathering. Like, as soon as I saw it, like it's such like Magic the Gathering, like it's such a white effect, a white card, and all of the coloring is so white as well. It really is kind of a Magic the Gathering card, but it's really interesting and it's really gonna have an impact on this game. And this card could not be seen at all. It wouldn't shock me if this card didn't see any play at all. It also wouldn't shock me if this card is in every single DEMACIAN deck either. I really don't know. With an effect like this, it seems good to me. It's got 3 health as well, which is important. Because if this had 2 health, then it really would be difficult. But of course, because all your opponents are spells costing 1 more, things like Get Excited are now costing your opponent 4 and a discard to kill this thing. And they're going to want to. They're going to want to have to kill this thing because they can't let it sit on the board. And obviously you're not going to really use it in combat. You're going to force your opponent to, kill it in some way. And obviously most decks use spells to kill their opponent's creatures. And that's going to really hurt them. So yeah, the more I look at this card, the more I think it's good because 3 health, you're never using it in combat. It's not invincible, of course, but the fact that it's just forcing your opponent, and obviously your deck is going to be built around the fact that you probably aren't running many spells, and the ones that you are probably are going to be, pretty inconsequential spells, stuff like Ranger's Resolve, maybe the odd single combat as well, but you just run a zoo deck, full of just creatures. This seems like a really powerful card, and it's particularly in the right meta, right? Like, imagine this against Lee Sin. That's really good, right? Now that deck, does have a way of potentially removing this, but imagine putting 2 of these on the board. The value that you're getting compared to what they're getting just becomes pretty insane. This is going to be a really interesting card. A lot of people, I think, might complain about this card. It would not shock me in the least. But I'm actually pretty excited. I kind of like this design because it's going to force different ways, you know. Decks like that are spell heavy might, you know, need to throw in a challenger or something like that, knowing that this card exists. Particularly if, you know, Demacia becomes prevalent. Now, don't get me wrong. Demacia could be the worst region in the game, and it still wouldn't see tier 1 play, even though they got this card, right? That could completely be the case. You know, you could play this, but, you know, it turns out that a unit-based deck was just better anyway, and you lost. But I think with the introduction of Targon, there hasn't been many great, like, unit-centric decks. You know, you think of like the decks that have been near the top for most of the time, and it's not every single deck, but most of the time since Targon's introduction, it has been, you know, a lot of Celestials. It's been a lot of spells, you know, using Comet to obliterate stuff, or ramping up, or, you know, now Lee Sin, obviously, very spell heavy. So I like that a card is coming out that's just maybe going to change that back. And just, you know, reset the balance, perhaps. I really like this card. This card, a lot of people are going to complain about this card, I think. But I really like it. We'll see, though, as we go forward. It might be terrible to play against. Okay, more Demacia. I'm assuming we're getting Demacia, then. SHARPSIGHT, 2-mana burst speed spell. Give an ally +2/+2, and I can block units with elusive this round. Okay, yeah. So they didn't want it to say, you know, give me elusive, because they want you to only use this in a defensive way. And you know what? We could have used with this card probably a long time ago. Back when elusives were, you know, the thing. They aren't so much anymore. Hush, being a key reason why. But I don't think that this card can. I mean, unless... No, this card can't ever be like a ladder deck. It could be a tournament deck if an elusive deck came up and was really good. It could find way into a tournament deck, but I don't think this card could ever see. It's just too narrow in scope. It's like is it Passage on Urn? You know, the thing that obliterates all the summoned ones. Like, in a specific tournament meta, you could see it. In ladder, you never would play this card, I don't think. Although, I suppose, I am slightly misreading the card. It is a +2/+2 effect. Hold on, what am I talking about? Forget what I just said completely. You can use this, of course. I for some reason, I was like, you can only use this on defensive turns. You can use this on any turn, and it's given ally +2/+2. What am I talking about? This card will be played. Transfusion was a card that was played, and that has a downside compared to this. +2/+2 is no joke. Transfusion is a card that sees play. And you have to damage one of your own things to do that. This is just straight up give something 2/2. There is no condition on this, right? I am reading it right now, right? Give an ally +2/+2, and I can block units with elusive this round. Okay, this card is really good. What am I talking about? This card will be seen everywhere. Forget what I just said. You will play this card. I thought it was very narrow in scope, but it turns out it's very wide in scope and just has an extra narrow ability added on. Okay. This card is good. Pretty good. Good enough that you will see this, I would imagine, in most Demacia decks. Obviously, most Demacia decks are unit-centric. Maybe you wouldn't see this in Lux decks. But, you know, general, like, Bannerman or Scouts or whatever, just, you know, normal Demacia unit decks, I think you'd play this. Almost certainly. So, yeah. Get ready to see that card. Stalking Broodmother is a dragon. Okay, we're getting Shyvana tomorrow. Cool. It is a 7-mana 6/6 Fury Scout. Ooh. I mean, this is a card that I think I'm going to just pass on giving opinion because I need to see what Shyvana does. Like, I would say that this isn't terrible, but I don't think it's amazing either. you know, it's fine. You know, it's probably in line with what you'd expect. The Fury means that obviously once you attack the first time, you know, the second time you get obviously the added stat then if they block something, you know, which you've killed, which you probably want to. We'll have to see what Shyvana does to fully evaluate this card, but you know, it's another dragon, and maybe with Shyvana, it's very possible a dragon deck will exist, and this might go into it depending on exactly what Shyvana does, but I think that's all we can say for now. So let's keep going and see what else is on the horizon. Dragon Guard Lieutenant is a 2-mana 3/2. When I'm summoned, if you behold a dragon, grant me Challenger. Okay. So if a dragon deck does exist, obviously, then I'd imagine you'd play this. A 2-mana 3/2 with Challenger is something that is, you know, pretty solid on turn 2. You know, can kill some 1-drops with 1 attack, and still be alive, of course. But the good thing about this card is, and the good thing about stuff like this with Challenger is, you know, if you play this on turn 4, you probably feel fine about it, to be honest. You know, other than the fact that, you know, haven't hit your curve properly, but, you know, if you do have a dragon in hand, and then, you know, you play this on, like I say, turn 4, turn 5, it can probably still find a good target to kill. So it scales pretty well into late game, and, you know, for a 2-drop, that's pretty good. It's a pretty solid 2-drop in all. But I kind of like this design as opposed to something like War Chefs, which are just kind of like universally good. You know, I like that this has, or used to be universally good, I should say. You know, this has a condition. You're going to play this in dragon decks, and you're not going to play it in non-dragon decks, which I kind of really like as a design concept as a whole. So yeah, pretty solid card. Moving on, is that it? No. We have Egghead Researcher, which is when I'm summoned, create a random dragon follower in hand. Okay. Now, this is a summon effect. I don't know of too many ways of summoning 2-mana units. I'm sure there is some, but I can't. Obviously, most of them that come to mind straight away are obviously 1-mana units. But hey ho, this is Egghead Researcher. So when I'm summoned, create a random dragon follower in hand. Again, I'm imagining that this card is pretty hard to evaluate without seeing all the cards, because obviously when you have a card like this, you kind of need to know the exact, you know, every single card that you could get, and then you look at it and you go, okay, you know, 2 of these options are really good, 1 is terrible, you know, 2 are okay, like, and then you can work out just how good this card actually is. It's a 2-mana 1/3, which is, you know, understated. And so we're going to have to see if the dragons is there. We've already know that we've got 1 2-drop within the dragon deck. Whether this will be, you know, the other 2-drop in the dragon deck, we shall see. It very well could be, don't get me wrong. It wouldn't shock me in the least if it was. It's going to depend. Do you want 2-drops? Would you rather just keep the 2-drops you already got? Maybe this is a one-off. I could see as kind of your 4th 2-drop. That would not shock me in the least. And I think that is that. So, going through the cards quickly then, we had these Noxus cards. I completely forgot about this. The arena card, unfortunately, I don't think that that's going to be there, other than some neat synergies, which I pointed out. Scorched Earth, decent. You know, could be seen. It would be this or Guillotine. Depends on how good landmarks are, I guess. But a pretty decent card. Then we had the crazy one, right? Yeah, Stony Suppressor. Wow. Really crazy card. We'll see exactly what happens with that. But very, very interesting card. SHARPSIGHT, which I eventually read properly and, you know, figured out what it actually did. Really good card. Will definitely be seeing play. You'll have to actually, you know, on the first few days, I'm definitely going to forget that this card exists and someone's going to play it and completely blow me out. And I'm going to be like, oh yeah, that card exists. So get ready for that. Then we had, did I miss one there? No, we had this dragon. Nah, it's fine. It's not terrible, but it's not crazy good either. Then we had Dragon Guard Lieutenant, very solid 2-drop in Dragon decks, and then finally the Egghead Researcher, which I think is fine but not great. And so that's all the cards. So that's going to be it from me. Stay tuned for Shyvana tomorrow. Leave a like, a comment, and maybe even subscribe if you want to. Yeah, that's going to do it from me. My name's been Chris. Have a really nice day.